Chapter 7, The Goodnight Diss. While I really did convince myself that Chad Milan could seem sexy and appealing before dinner, this possibility has completely evaporated before we've even ordered appetizers. I'm not sure if it's the way he's tasting the wine, swilling it around in his mouth and closing his eyes pretentiously, or the fact that he's declaring the Da Vinci Code the best book ever written, but I want to reach across the table, put my arms around his neck, and squeeze tight. I absolutely hate it when I feel like people, particularly men, aren't acting like themselves but like someone they think you'd like. What's further annoying me is his insistence on touching my arm or leg whenever he makes a point. As he tells me how thrilling it was the first time he saw his name in Variety, I realize he's not doing anything that terrible, that he's just being exactly who he is. Look, Chad, I wanted to make something clear, I say after taking a gulp of wine for liquid courage. He looks up expectantly. Every guy knows this kind of introduction and that it's time to stop talking about the thrill of getting your name in the trades and pay attention. I want to be able to say, I only think of you as a friend, but I can't seem to get that sentence out because the truth is, I don't think of Chad as anything even close to a friend. And besides, I'm sitting here at the Little Door, a decidedly romantic restaurant, splitting probably a $75 bottle of wine with him. And though I'm going to do the after-dinner wallet reach, I'm going to expect him to pay and be horrified if he has the audacity to accept my offer to go Dutch. So what should I say to him? That I only said yes because I couldn't think of a reason to say no? And besides, I'm so terribly lonely that at least this date would help me believe I'm not completely cut off from the human race? I'm not really ready to get into anything now, I manage. I expect Chad to have that disappointed but hiding it look that most guys get when they understand that they're out roughly $200 and probably aren't going to get laid. But something seems to have been lost in the translation, for Chad's smile widens. See, that's what I love about you, he says. What? This is so not good. You're so straightforward, so direct, he says. Most women don't ever say what they mean, but you always do. I've often been commended for this quality, which usually confuses the hell out of me, as I almost never say what I mean. If, comparatively speaking, I'm clearer than other women, I feel for humanity. I'm not sure if I'm being direct enough, I start to say, but Chad cuts me off. You were perfectly direct, and the last thing I'd ever want to do to you or any other woman is rush her. We're just here to get to know each other better. He ends that ridiculously optimistic response to getting blown off by holding up his glass and motioning for me to pick up mine. Cheers, he says. I dated a guy in college who was obsessed with toasting. Coffee, glasses of water, milk, every liquid short of spittle was worthy of making a special moment out of. And well, I've just never really been a cheers type of person. But what are you going to do? I tried to explain my feelings to Chad, but his blinding belief in his ability to agent me over to his side means my point hasn't a hope of getting through. So, as far as I'm concerned, I've done my part and can now eat and drink guilt-free. What's another hour of my time? I lift my glass and clink his with a smile. Cheers, I say. Later, when Chad pays the check, the move the bill to his side and shake his head as I start to object move, I start worrying about how I'm going to get out of this night's goodnight kiss. No matter how many people tell you that just because a guy's taking you to a nice dinner, he doesn't think you owe him at the end of the night, those few moments of horribly awkward conversation about how delicious the chicken was or how early yoga starts tomorrow say otherwise. As I'm debating whether it might be less awkward to simply make out with him for a minute and get it over with, Chad suggests we go somewhere else for a drink. I shake my head, calculating that if I have to make small talk for another hour, I may peel all of my cuticles off my fingers out of anxiety and general unhappiness. What about guys? Chad asks, hitting a soft spot. It's the one bar in LA that I actually like, and it's so tough to get into that being a girl doesn't even help. I'm on the list, he adds. I'm sort of surprised that Chad has the cachet to pull off guys, but I shouldn't be. The doorman probably dreams of being the next Johnny Depp and believes Chad can help him make that happen. During the car ride over, Chad gets on his cell phone, which would normally horrify me, But I'm actually grateful to the person on the other end of the phone for saving me 5 more minutes of pretending to seem interested. It seems to be another agent because I'm hearing Chad talk about Ashton and packaging fees and the Backstreet Boys in a way that I can tell he thinks might impress me. And truth be told, if it were a guy I was attracted to, it might well have. When we pull up at Guy's, Chad hands the car over to the valet, and an enormous black burly doorman opens the velvet rope and waves us through. I spy my friend Bill Kirkpatrick at the bar, with an assortment of shot glasses filled with various and sundry liquids in front of him. Bill and I were good friends in college, but for some reason we don't ever hang out in LA, which is unfortunate, seeing as he's the only friend from college that I'm still in touch with. So Bill is a major breath of fresh air after 2 hours of Chad Milan. I poke Chad's arm and point to the bar. "That's my old friend Bill," I say, starting to step through the throng and in Bill's direction. "I know Bill Kirkpatrick," he says. A pause and then, "I hate Bill Kirkpatrick. A girl I dated was two-timing me with him." "That sucks," I say. "Oh well." I know this is a cold-hearted response, but the truth is I need a break from Chad. A guy in a 3-piece suit, clearly another agent, slaps Chad on the shoulder by way of greeting. "I'm just going to go say hi to Bill," I tell Chad as he starts chatting with 3-piece suit guy. "I'll be over there." Chad nods as the other agent guy hands him a cocktail. Then I make my way over to Bill, who glances past me toward Chad. "Oh God, please don't tell me you're here with Chad Milan," he says. Bill likes to act protective of me, but the way he typically expresses this is by telling me that the guys I hang around with are complete idiots. Of course, he's usually right. He's such a tool. I don't refute the statement, and Bill slides down a stool to make space for me at the bar, nodding his head in the direction of a guy whose back is to us. "I'm here with my friend Rick. We're matching each other shot for shot." Bill gestures to the shot glasses, most of which are still full. Just then, Rick turns around, and I realize with a jolt that Rick is Rick Wilson. As in Rick Wilson, the former child star who I'd been obsessed with in 8th grade. "You're Rick Wilson," I say before I can help myself. With famous people, you're supposed to act like you don't know who they are, or, if you happen to, that you are not impressed by their status but are very interested in getting to know what they're really like as a person. When it's an extremely famous person, it's easy to remember this. But if it's someone decidedly less known, you can get confused and think you actually know them. I once saw Gregory Hines walking down the street in New York and greeted him with a, "Hey, how are you?" because I thought he was one of my grade school teachers. Rick, for his part, looks altogether thrilled to be recognized. It's actually possible he hasn't worked since the mid-'80s. "I am," he smiles, tiny but perfect teeth shining under his full lips. "And though I don't recognize you, I wish I did," he says. He leans past Bill to brush my cheek with his lips. Bill glances from Rick to me. "Shot?" he asks. But before even waiting for an answer, he slides one over to me and one over to Rick. Somehow when Rick says cheers, it doesn't bug me. And that's around where everything starts to go slightly hazy. Or maybe it's after the second round of shots or the third. All I know for certain is that eventually we make our way through the glasses on the bar that had once been full. The bar gets extremely crowded and then seems to thin out. I wonder why Chad hasn't bothered to come over to where I'm standing and decide he's being really rude. Bill helps support this theory. "He brought you here and hasn't come over to have a drink with us?" he asked. What a tool. Rick nods, continuing to make heavy eye contact with me. And then I come up with the ideal solution for getting out of kissing Chad Milan and into kissing Rick Wilson. "Why don't I tell Chad I looked for him everywhere but couldn't find him?" I ask Bill while Rick is in the bathroom. Guy's isn't exactly a massive nightclub. It's essentially one room, but Bill nods supportively. "You should," he says. "Rick is definitely into you. Just call Chad when you get home and tell him that when you couldn't find him, you got another ride home." I'm not sure exactly how this plan is communicated to Rick, but the next thing I know, I'm making my way toward the bathroom, being careful to make sure Chad isn't looking in my direction. I escape through the back where I crouch by the side of the building like I'm the female James Bond or something. "Let's get you home," Rick smiles as he walks outside. Grabbing my hand, he leads me to a black BMW parked in the back and opens the door for me. I slide in and unlock his side, remembering that some guy once told me that he knows a girl is going to sleep with him if she unlocks the door. Rick notes that his door's unlocked with a wink at me as he slides into the driver's seat and starts the car. "We all clear?" he asks. "Any sign of your guy?" I look around and see only valet parkers. "I think we're good," I say, but just to be safe, I slide down the seat so that my legs and butt are on the floor of his car and my head is on the seat. We pull in front of Guy's and out onto Beverly. "I think we made it," he says, pretending to wipe sweat from his brow. It's not always easy to escape from the claws of a smarmy agent. I slide back onto the seat and sit up straight. "Well, this damsel, formerly in distress, is quite grateful for your help in the matter." He smiles and we make small talk while I direct him to my place. When we pull up in front of my building, he immediately starts looking around for a parking space. "Do you need a permit to park here at night?" he asks. I hadn't had any intention of actually bringing him inside my apartment. Call me a tease, and believe me, many have. But if I like a guy and think we have a chance of actually having a relationship, I won't do anything more than kiss him unless I'm severely impaired to the point of near blackout. "You don't need to park," I say. I lean in and he takes the cue and starts kissing me. Fairly quickly, we're making out passionately, and as I alternate between breathing into his ear and kissing his neck, it occurs to me that Rick could be the answer to all my dreams. Pulling away, I ask in a low, sexy voice, "Are you seeing anybody?" He looks horrified. "Whoa, mood killer," he says, leaning back and immediately pushing the cigarette lighter in. "I wasn't trying to kill the mood," I say, kicking myself for my timing, while snuggling up next to him and grabbing another cigarette from his pack. "I was just curious because I think you're cool." As soon as it's out of my mouth and surrounded by nothing but silence, I realize how lame this sounds. Rick lights his smoke, takes a drag, and exhales. "I don't have a girlfriend, if that's what you're asking." I smile and drag on my cigarette as Rick unleashes a torrent of non sequiturs about a girl he was seeing who was always ruining what they had by trying to make the relationship more serious. He says the word serious the way a vegetarian might say the word steak. I'm smoking and regretting having launched him on this entire line of thinking when I hear him use, "Don't you think it's interesting that the word for someone being sent to an insane asylum, committed, is the same as the word for being in a serious relationship?" I nod, for the first time wondering about the decision-making ability I've displayed in the past few hours. Though this anti-relationship rant has helped to make his feelings on the matter abundantly clear, I wonder if he still likes me, if we're going to date, or if my Rick Wilson experience is going to prove to be as ephemeral as his successful Hollywood career. Glancing at my watch and discovering that it's 1:30 a.m., I decide it's time to cut my losses. I lean in quickly for another kiss, and then I retreat, saying, "Ask Bill for my number if you want to reach me." I open the passenger side door, get out, and steady myself, just as Rick is saying, mostly it seems to himself, "Jesus, you're just about the most abrupt chick I've ever met." I smile as I slam the door shut. I like being called the most anything, even if the thing is abrupt. The next morning, I wake up at about 6 and can't fall back to sleep. I'm utterly useless on days like this. I know some people get tired, but I get literally insane. My IQ probably drops 100 points. I have trouble seeing clearly. And the only thing that gets me through the day is the thought that at some point, all this torture will be over and I'll be able to get in bed and sleep. Since I'm up, I decide to hit the gym. Maybe I'll sweat the exhaustion out of me. At the gym, I force myself onto the treadmill. The place is completely empty, which doesn't ever happen to gyms in LA, what with exercise addiction being so rampant. It must be an obscure holiday or something. I'm so out of it that I barely notice when someone else comes into the gym. Then I look up, catch this person's eyes, and immediately pray for a time machine and the opportunity to be anywhere else. "Hi, Chad," I all but scream to Chad Milan in such a fake cheerful voice that I'm immediately shocked it's come out of me. My head races through some shadowy reflections of coming into my apartment last night after making out with Rick. Did I call Chad the way I'd planned to, or did I pass out before getting to it? Suddenly, I'm positive I did. I remember almost fainting with relief when I got his voicemail. All of these thoughts zip through my mind in the amount of time it takes me to smile winningly and ask, "Did you get my message?" Chad nods and stops beside my treadmill. "Yeah, I did," he says, "and forgive me for not calling you back afterward." I'm about to tell him that it's okay when he walks over to the Stairmaster and adds, "It's just that since I went outside to find you and saw you hiding and then jumping into Rick Wilson's car, it made your message about how you'd looked everywhere for me mean less." Then he gets on the Stairmaster and starts it up. And I say nothing. There is just Chad Milan, an empty gym, and my utter horror. Chad doesn't say another word, and even in my state of complete and utter humiliation, I admire him for having the balls to put me in my place like that. Now I actually understand why a girl might be attracted to him, I think, as I slink out of the gym moments later.